Daniel Cole stood in the golden hallway of the Imperial Palace. He wore simple black armor that was too thin for real protection. His hands were at his sides. His eyes moved slowly from left to right, watching everything. He was a human, and in this galaxy that meant almost nothing. They were tall. They stood 8 feet high with silver skin that shined like metal. They lived for hundreds of years. Some of them had seen empires rise and fall. They were strong, fast, and they looked at humans the way humans looked at insects. Daniel had been on this planet for 3 months now. He was a bodyguard, but not a real one. Everyone knew the truth. He was a joke. Princess walked past him without looking at his face. She was beautiful in the way that all were beautiful. Her silver hair fell to her waist. Her eyes were purple like dark gems. She moved with the grace of someone who had never known fear or hunger or pain. Daniel followed her at the correct distance, 10 steps behind, never closer, never further. The other guards in the palace laughed when they saw him. They were warriors, each one capable of breaking Daniel in half with their bare hands. They called him names in their language. They did not think he understood, but Daniel had learned their tongue in the first month. He understood everything. "Look at the princess and her pet," one guard said to another. "How sad. She must have done something terrible to deserve such punishment." Daniel kept walking. His face showed nothing. The truth was not complicated. Princess had spoken against one of her father's decisions in public. It was a small thing. She had said the wrong words at the wrong time. The emperor did not punish her directly. That would have been too obvious. Instead, he gave her a human bodyguard. The message was clear. You are not important enough for a real protector. Hated Daniel for what he represented. She never spoke to him. She never looked at him. When she walked, she pretended he did not exist. He was invisible to her. He was nothing. But Daniel did not care about her feelings. He had a job to do, and Daniel Cole always did his job. At night, when the princess slept in her chambers, Daniel stood outside her door. He did not sit. He did not lean against the wall. He stood straight and still for hours. The other guards took breaks. They talked with each other. They drank and laughed. Daniel just stood. One night, a commander named Lord stopped in front of Daniel, was in charge of palace security. He was old even by standards. His silver skin had darker lines across it like cracks in ancient stone. "Human," said, "why do you try so hard?" Daniel looked up at the massive alien. "I am doing my duty, my lord." "Your duty?" laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "You are here as a punishment for the princess. You know this. Everyone knows this. So why do you stand here like a real guard? Why do you pretend?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I am not pretending. The princess is my responsibility. I will protect her." "Protect her?" laughed again. "You are human. You are weak. You are slow. You will die of old age before the princess reaches middle age. What could you possibly protect her from?" "Whatever comes," Daniel said simply. Stared at him for a long time. Then he shook his head and walked away. Daniel heard him muttering about foolish humans and their foolish pride. But Daniel did not care. He turned his eyes back to the hallway and continued to watch. Weeks passed. Daniel learned the palace. He walked every corridor. He counted every window. He noted every door and where it led. He watched the guards and learned their patrol patterns. He studied the servants and learned their schedules. He also watched the nobles who came and went. He saw how they looked at each other. He heard the things they said when they thought no one was listening. The palace was full of secrets, and Daniel was very good at finding secrets. One evening, Princess returned to her chambers earlier than usual. Her face was troubled. She walked past Daniel but then stopped. For the first time in 3 months, she turned and looked at him. "Human," she said, "what is your name?" "Daniel Cole, Your Highness." She studied him with her purple eyes. "You have been my guard for 3 months. You have never complained. You have never asked for rest. You stand outside my door every night like a statue. Why?" "It is my duty, Your Highness." "Duty?" She said the word like it tasted strange in her mouth. "Other humans I have seen are not like you. They are soft, they complain, they break easily, but you are different. Why?" Daniel thought about the question. He had many answers he could give. He could talk about his training. He could talk about his pride. He could talk about proving that humans were not as weak as everyone believed. But he chose the simple truth. "Because I do not accept failure, Your Highness. When I am given a task, I complete it. When I am given a person to protect, I protect them. That is who I am." Was quiet for a long moment. Something changed in her eyes. It was small, like a crack in ice. For just a second, she did not look at him like he was an insect. "I see," she said softly. Then she turned and entered her chambers. That night Daniel stood at his post as always, but something had shifted. He could feel it. The princess had seen him, really seen him, not as a punishment, not as a joke, but as a person. It was a small thing, but small things could grow. Daniel Cole continued to watch the hallway. He did not know what the future held. He did not know that dark forces were already moving against the royal family. He did not know that soon he would be tested in ways he could never imagine. But he was ready. He had always been ready. Because that was what humans did. They prepared, they waited, and when the moment came, they acted. The night was quiet, the palace slept, and Daniel Cole stood guard, alone in the darkness, waiting for whatever would come next. He was just a human, weak, fragile, short-lived. But he was not afraid. The months that followed changed everything between Daniel and the princess. Began to notice things about her human guard, small things at first, the way he always positioned himself between her and any doorway, the way his eyes never stopped moving, always searching for threats, the way he learned the names of every servant, every guard, every noble who entered the palace. She started speaking to him, short conversations at first, questions about Earth and about humans. Daniel answered honestly. He told her about he told her about human history. He told her about the wars and the suffering and the way humans had clawed their way to the stars despite everything. "Your species has only been traveling between stars for 200 years, said one day. "We have been an empire for 10,000. How do you hope to compete with us?" "We do not hope to compete, Your Highness," Daniel replied. "We simply refuse to give up. That is how we have always survived." Thought about this often. She had never met anyone like Daniel. He was small and weak by standards. He would die of old age before she even reached her first century. But there was something in him that she could not name, a fire that burned behind his calm eyes. Meanwhile, darkness was growing in the palace. Prince was the emperor's nephew. He was tall and handsome with silver skin that shone brighter than most. He smiled often and spoke kind words to everyone, but Daniel did not trust him. Daniel had watched for weeks. He saw the way the prince looked at the emperor when no one was watching. He saw the secret meetings with certain nobles. He saw the new guards that had brought into the palace. They were not normal guards. They moved differently. They watched differently. One evening, Daniel approached Lord in his security office. "My lord," Daniel said, "I have concerns about Prince." Looked up from his work. His old eyes were tired and annoyed. "The human has concerns. How wonderful. Tell me, creature, what could you possibly have noticed that my trained security forces have missed?" "The prince has brought 12 new guards into the palace over the past month. They are not registered in your duty lists. They patrol areas near the royal chambers but are never assigned there officially. 3 of them have scars that suggest combat training from the outer territories." Stared at Daniel. For a moment something flickered in his eyes, then it was gone. "You are seeing shadows, human. Prince is a loyal member of the royal family. His guards are his personal protectors, nothing more. You are embarrassing yourself with these wild accusations." My lord, if you would just investigate. Enough stood. He was nearly 3 feet taller than Daniel. Know your place, human. You are here to babysit a disgraced princess, not to advise on security matters. Leave my office. Now. Daniel left, but he did not stop watching. He told Princess about his concerns that night. She listened carefully. Her face grew pale as he spoke. Has always been ambitious, she said quietly. But assassination, would he really go that far? I believe he would, Your Highness. I have seen the way he looks at your father. There is no love there, only hunger. Sat on her bed, she suddenly looked very young, very afraid. My father does not see it. He loves like a son. He would never believe such accusations without proof. Then we must find proof, Daniel said, or we must be ready when the attack comes. If it comes. When, Daniel repeated firmly, it is only a matter of time. That night Daniel did something he had never done before. He left his post for 2 hours. He moved through the dark corridors of the palace like a shadow. He had studied every guard rotation. He knew where the gaps were. He knew how to move unseen. He found a human trader in the lower city, a man named Carl who sold things that were not legal. Daniel had known men like Carl his whole life. Every port had them. Every city had them. I need a neural stimulant, Daniel said. Military grade. Carl raised an eyebrow. That stuff will kill you, friend. Pushes your body past its limits. You might be fast for a few minutes, but your heart will give out. I know what it does. Then you know the price, and I do not just mean credits. Daniel placed a bag of crystals on the table. It was everything he had saved in 6 months of service. Carl picked up the bag and weighed it in his hand. Then he reached under his table and produced a small injector filled with blue liquid. 1 dose, Carl said. It will give you about 10 minutes of enhanced speed and reflexes. After that, your body will shut down. If you are lucky, you will only be unconscious for a few days. If you are not lucky, you will be dead. Daniel took the injector and hid it in his boot. He also bought a second blade, small and thin, easy to hide, easy to forget was there until the moment it was needed. When he returned to his post outside the princess's chambers, no one had noticed his absence. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel continued to watch. He saw meeting with more nobles. He saw gold changing hands. He saw whispered conversations that stopped whenever anyone came near. The Festival of Eternal Stars was approaching. It was the largest celebration of the year. The entire royal family would gather in the grand throne chamber. Thousands of guests would attend. Security would be stretched thin. Daniel knew in his bones that this was when it would happen. He told. The festival, she said. Of course, it is the perfect moment. Everyone will be watching the ceremonies. The guards will be focused on the crowds. I will be ready, Daniel said. Looked at him with something like sadness in her purple eyes. You are only human, Daniel. If sends assassins, they will be warriors. What can you do against them? Daniel met her gaze. Whatever I must, Your Highness. You could die. Yes. And you would accept that. For me, I have treated you poorly. I have ignored you. I have been ashamed of you. That does not matter, Daniel said. You are my responsibility. I will protect you. Why? Her voice cracked slightly. Why would you give your life for someone who has shown you nothing but coldness? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because that is who I am. I do not protect people because they deserve it. I protect them because I chose to. That choice does not change based on how I am treated. Looked at him for a long time. Tears formed in her eyes but did not fall. You are a strange creature, Daniel Cole, she whispered. I do not understand you, but I am grateful for you. Thank you, Your Highness. She said, when we are alone, you may call me. Daniel nodded slowly. She smiled. It was the first real smile she had ever given him. The festival was 3 days away. The palace was busy with preparations. Servants ran everywhere. Decorations filled every hall. Music echoed through the corridors. And Daniel Cole stood at his post, the hidden blade in his boot, the stimulant injector against his skin, waiting for the storm that was coming. He was ready. Whatever happened, he would not fail. The Festival of Eternal Stars was the most beautiful night Daniel had ever seen. The Grand Throne Chamber was massive. It could hold 10,000 people. Tonight it was full. Nobles from 100 worlds had come to celebrate. They wore clothes made of light and fabric that shimmered like liquid metal. Music played from instruments Daniel could not name. The air smelled of strange flowers and sweet wine. Emperor sat on his throne at the far end of the chamber. He was ancient even by standards. His silver skin was dark with age, and his eyes held the weight of centuries. But he smiled tonight. He watched his people celebrate and seemed happy. Princess stood near the edge of the room with the other royal children. There were 7 of them in total. She was the 3rd oldest. Her brothers and sisters barely spoke to her. Her disgrace had made her untouchable. Daniel stood 10 steps behind her. He wore his formal armor, black and simple. He was the only human in the entire chamber. Some of the guests pointed at him and whispered. Others laughed. He ignored them all. His eyes moved constantly. He watched the guards at every door. He watched the servants carrying trays of food and drink. He watched the nobles as they danced and talked. And he watched Prince. The prince stood near the emperor's throne. He was smiling and laughing with the high nobles. He looked relaxed. He looked happy. But his eyes kept moving to the doors, again and again, like he was waiting for something. Daniel felt the danger before he saw it. It was a strange feeling, like the air becoming heavy, like a sound at the edge of hearing. Every instinct he had screamed that something was wrong. He looked around the chamber. Nothing seemed different. The music played, the people danced, the guards stood at their posts. Then he saw it, a shimmer in the air near the main doors, like heat rising from hot stone. But there was no heat here. The palace was cool. Cloaking devices. Daniel reached into his boot and found the injector. He pressed it against his thigh and pushed the trigger. The neural stimulant entered his blood. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world changed. Everything became sharp, clear. He could hear individual heartbeats in the crowd. He could see the smallest movements of every person in the chamber. His muscles felt like they were made of steel and fire. The shimmer near the doors became solid. 12 figures appeared from nothing. They wore black armor and carried plasma blades. Their faces were hidden behind masks. The assassins. They moved fast, faster than any normal being could react. They cut through the first line of guards before anyone could scream. Blood sprayed across the golden floor. Then the screaming started. The chamber erupted into chaos. Nobles ran in every direction. Guards drew their weapons but did not know where to aim. The assassins spread out, moving toward their targets. 3 of them headed straight for the emperor. 3 more moved toward the royal children. Daniel was already running. The world seemed to slow around him. The screaming became distant. The running people became obstacles to move around. He focused only on the assassins moving toward. He reached the first one before the assassin knew he was there. Daniel's hidden blade found the gap between helmet and armor. The assassin fell without a sound. The second assassin turned. His masked face showed surprise. A human, here, moving this fast. That surprise lasted half a second. Daniel's blade opened his throat. The third assassin was different. He was bigger than the others, stronger. He moved with the fluid grace of a master killer. He saw Daniel coming and did not hesitate. Their blades met in a flash of sparks. The assassin was strong enough to push Daniel back, but Daniel was faster. He ducked under a killing blow and stabbed at the assassin's leg. The blade cut deep. The assassin stumbled, but he did not fall. He looked past Daniel, as she was frozen in fear, unable to move. The assassin made his choice. He could not defeat this impossible human, but he could still complete his mission. He pushed Daniel aside with tremendous force. Daniel flew through the air and crashed into a stone pillar. His ribs cracked. Pain exploded through his body, but he did not stay down. He pushed himself up and saw the assassin raising his plasma blade. The weapon glowed orange with deadly heat, was right in front of him. She had nowhere to run. The assassin thrust his blade at her heart. Daniel moved. He did not think, he did not plan, he simply moved. He threw himself between the princess and the blade. The plasma blade entered his chest. The pain was beyond anything Daniel had ever felt. It was not just heat, it was destruction. The blade burned through flesh and bone. It touched his heart. It touched his lungs. It touched places that could not be touched and survive. Daniel looked down at the glowing blade sticking out of his chest. He should be dead. He knew he should be dead. The assassin stared at him through the mask. The alien killer had made thousands of kills in his life. He knew what death looked like. This human was dead. The blade had pierced his heart. But the human was still standing. Daniel's hand closed around the assassin's wrist. His grip was like iron. The throne chamber had gone silent. 10,000 people had stopped screaming, stopped running. They all stared at the small human with a blade through his heart. Princess was behind Daniel. She could see the blade coming out of his back. She could see the blood pouring down his body. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Emperor had risen from his throne. His ancient eyes were wide with something no one had ever seen in them before. Fear. Not fear of the assassins, fear of what he was seeing, fear of the impossible thing happening before him. Daniel Cole looked into the eyes of his killer. His voice was quiet, barely a whisper, but in the silent chamber everyone heard him. "You missed." Then, with his free hand, he grabbed the plasma blade and pulled it from his own chest. Blood sprayed across the floor. The wound was horrible. Anyone could see that it was fatal. The human should collapse. He should die. The laws of biology demanded it. Daniel Cole did not care about the laws of biology. He took the blade and drove it into the assassin's throat. The killer fell. Daniel stood alone in the center of the chamber. Blood poured from his chest. His legs shook. His vision blurred, but he did not fall. The remaining assassins looked at him. They looked at their dead comrades. They looked at the human who would not die. And for the first time in their lives, they felt something they had never felt before. Fear of a human. The palace guards, they cut down the remaining assassins in seconds. Prince tried to run, but the Emperor's elite warriors caught him before he reached the doors. But no one was watching. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on Daniel Cole. He stood swaying on his feet. His blood made a pool around him. His face was pale as death. Emperor descended from his throne. He walked toward Daniel with slow, careful steps. He stopped 3 feet away and looked at the human. "How?" the Emperor breathed. "How are you still standing?" Daniel's eyes found behind him. She was safe, alive, unharmed. He had done his duty. "Because she was behind me," he whispered, "and I do not fall while someone I protect is in danger." Then finally, his body surrendered. Daniel collapsed. Caught him before he hit the floor. She held his broken body in her arms and screamed for physicians. Her silver hands were covered in his red blood. Tears streamed down her face. "Do not die," she begged. "Please, Daniel, do not die." But Daniel could not hear her anymore. The darkness had finally claimed him. The physicians said Daniel Cole was dead. They said it many times in the hours after the attack. They said it as they carried his body to the medical chambers. They said it as they connected him to machines that breathed for him and pumped blood through his veins. They said it as they tried everything they knew to save him. The plasma blade had pierced his heart. It had burned through his left lung. It had damaged his spine. No human could survive such wounds. No human should have been able to stand after receiving them, let alone fight and kill his attacker. But Daniel Cole was not like other humans. Princess refused to leave his side. She sat next to his bed for hours, then days. Servants brought her food that she did not eat. Her siblings came to take her away, but she would not move. Her father, the emperor, sent his personal physician, but she would not leave. She held Daniel's cold hand and waited. The news of what happened spread across the galaxy like fire. Within days, every world knew the story. A human had taken a fatal blow meant for a princess. A human had pulled a plasma blade from his own heart. A human had killed his assassin and remained standing until his princess was safe. Some people did not believe it. Humans were weak, they said. Humans were fragile. The story must be exaggerated. But there were 10,000 witnesses. There was video from the security cameras. There was the body of the assassin with Daniel's blade still in his throat. The story was true, all of it. On the third day, the physicians told that she should prepare herself. Daniel's body was failing. His heart had stopped twice already. Only the machines were keeping him alive. It was time to let him go. Looked at the head physician with eyes that could freeze fire. "You will save him," she said. "I do not care what it takes. I do not care what it costs. You will save him or you will answer to me." The physician was old and wise. He had served the royal family for 200 years, but something in the princess's eyes made him afraid. "Your Highness, the wound is beyond our ability to heal. Human bodies are different from ours. We do not have the knowledge." "Then find someone who does." His voice was cold and hard. "Search every world, contact every species, find the best physicians in the galaxy and bring them here, now." The physician bowed and left quickly. Within hours, the call went out. The Empire was searching for anyone who could save a human life. Credits were no object. Debts would be forgiven. Favors would be granted. The first to respond were the species known for their medical technology. They sent their finest surgeon, a being with 12 arms and eyes that could see individual cells. The surgeon examined Daniel for 6 hours. Then he told that the human should already be dead. The fact that his heart was still beating was medically impossible. "His body is fighting," the surgeon said. "Fighting harder than any body I have ever seen. He does not want to die, but wanting is not enough. He needs help that I cannot provide." Next came the reptilian species known for regeneration. They brought samples of their healing cells, hoping they could help a human body repair itself. The cells did not work. Human and biology were too different. But one of the scientists had an idea. There was an experimental treatment, he said, something that had never been tried on a human. It combined healing technology from 3 different species. It was dangerous. It might kill Daniel faster. "Do it," said without hesitation. The scientists worked for 12 hours. They injected Daniel with healing cells that had been modified to work with human tissue. They used micro-machines to repair the damage to his heart. They applied regeneration technology to his burned lung. Daniel's body fought the treatment. His temperature spiked. His heart stopped 3 more times. The machines screamed warnings that the scientists ignored. And then on the 7th day, something changed. Daniel's hand moved. Felt it before she saw it. His fingers tightened around hers, just slightly, just enough. She looked at his face. His eyes were still closed. His skin was still pale, but there was color returning to his cheeks. The machines showed his heart beating on its own now, slow but steady. "He is fighting," the surgeon said with something like wonder in his voice. "He is actually fighting his way back." The next weeks were a blur of surgery and recovery. Daniel woke twice but did not recognize anyone. He spoke words in English that made no sense. He called out for people did not know. Then he fell back into darkness. But each time he woke, he was a little stronger. Each day, his body healed a little more. The physicians were amazed. They had never seen anything like it. The human body was supposed to be weak. It was supposed to give up when damaged this badly, but Daniel's body refused to surrender. "It is as if his will is keeping him alive," one physician said. "His body should have died a dozen times, but his mind will not let it." Remembered what Daniel had told her months ago. "I do not accept failure. When I am given a person to protect, I protect them. That is who I am." She understood now. This was not just stubbornness. This was something deeper, something that ran through every cell of his body. Humans were not weak. They were something else entirely. They were survivors. On the 30th day, Daniel opened his eyes and recognized. "Your Highness," he whispered. His voice was rough and broken. "Are you safe?" Laughed and cried at the same time. She held his hand than she should have, but he did not complain. "I am safe," she said. "Because of you, you saved my life, Daniel." "Good." He closed his eyes again. "That is good." He slept for another week, but it was real sleep now, healing sleep. When he woke again, he could speak normally. He could move his arms and legs. The physician said he would need months of recovery, but he would survive. The news spread across the galaxy once more. The human lived. The human who had taken a plasma blade through the heart and refused to die was awake and healing. On distant worlds, humans who had always been looked down upon stood a little taller. The story of Daniel Cole gave them something they had rarely felt in the galactic community. Pride. Emperor came to visit Daniel personally. The ancient ruler stood beside the human's bed and looked down at him with eyes that had seen 10,000 years. "I have lived longer than any being in this empire," the emperor said. "I have seen heroes and villains. I have seen armies rise and fall. I have seen courage and cowardice in every form, but I have never seen anything like what you did, human." Daniel tried to sit up, but he was too weak. "I was only doing my duty, Your Majesty." "No," the emperor shook his head slowly. "What you did was beyond duty. You should have died when that blade entered your chest. Every law of nature said you should die, but you looked death in the face and told it to wait." The emperor paused. His voice became quieter. "I have been wrong about humans," he said. "We all have. We thought you were fragile because you die so quickly. We thought you were weak because you break so easily, but we did not understand. You are not survivors despite your weakness. You are survivors because of it. You know that every moment matters because you have so few of them. And when those moments demand everything from you, you give everything." Daniel did not know what to say, so he said nothing. The emperor nodded once. "Rest, human, heal. When you are recovered, I wish to speak with you again." Then the ancient ruler turned and left. Remained at Daniel's side. She had barely left the room in a month. "He was right, you know," she said softly. "We never understood humans. We looked at your short lives and saw tragedy, but we should have seen something else." "What?" Daniel asked. Smiled. "Purpose. Every human I have ever met moves through life like it matters, because to you it does. You cannot waste time because you have so little of it. You cannot accept defeat because you do not have centuries to try again. Everything you do with your whole being." She squeezed his hand. "That is not weakness, Daniel. That is the greatest strength I have ever seen." Daniel looked at the silver-skinned princess who had once been ashamed of him. He saw the tears in her purple eyes. He felt her hand holding his. "Thank you," he said, "for not giving up on me." "Never," she whispered. "I will never give up on you." Outside the medical chamber, the galaxy was changing. The story of Daniel Cole was spreading, and nothing would ever be the same. 4 months after the attack, Daniel Cole walked into the Grand Throne chamber under his own power. It was not easy. His legs still hurt with every step. His chest ached where the blade had pierced him. The physicians said the pain might never fully go away. The damage had been too severe. Daniel did not care about pain. He had known pain his entire life. It was just another part of being human. The chamber was full again, not as full as it had been during the festival, but close. Nobles from across the empire had come to witness this moment. The same nobles who had laughed at the human bodyguard now stood in respectful silence as he walked past them. Princess walked beside him. She wore a gown of silver light that matched her skin. Her hand rested gently on his arm, ready to catch him if he stumbled. He did not stumble. Emperor sat on his throne at the far end of the chamber. Beside him stood the other members of the royal family, all except Prince, who now rotted in the deepest prison beneath the palace, waiting for his execution. Daniel stopped at the base of the throne and bowed as deeply as his wounded body would allow. "Rise, Daniel Cole," the emperor commanded. "You have bowed enough, today you stand." Daniel straightened. It hurt, but he kept his face calm. The emperor stood from his throne. It was a rare thing. The ruler of a 10,000-year empire did not stand for anyone, but today he stood for a human. 3 months ago, a group of assassins tried to destroy my family, the emperor said. His voice carried through the silent chamber. They came with cloaking devices and plasma blades. They came with numbers and surprise on their side. They believed they would succeed. He paused and looked at Daniel. They failed because of this human. A murmur ran through the crowd. Even now, many of the nobles could not believe what they had witnessed. A human defeating assassins. A human surviving a wound that would have killed any other species. It seemed impossible. But they had all seen the video. They had all heard the witnesses. They could not deny the truth. Daniel Cole killed 3 assassins that night, the emperor continued. He took a plasma blade through his heart to protect my daughter, and then, against every law of nature and medicine, he rose to his feet and killed his attacker before collapsing. The emperor descended the steps of his throne. He walked toward Daniel until they stood face to face. "I have ruled this empire for 800 years. I have given many honors to many warriors, but never have I given the star of eternal valor to someone who was not." A servant approached carrying a velvet pillow. On the pillow rested a medal shaped like a star. It was made of pure crystal, the most precious substance in the empire. It glowed with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The emperor took the medal and held it up for all to see. Today that changes. He placed the medal around Daniel's neck. The crystal was warm against Daniel's chest, right over the scar where the blade had entered. "Daniel Cole, I name you hero of the empire. Your courage will be remembered for as long as our civilization stands. Your story will be taught to our children and our children's children. And when they ask what it means to be brave, we will tell them about the human who refused to die." The chamber erupted in applause, thousands of hands clapping, thousands of voices cheering. Daniel stood in the center of it all, feeling small and overwhelmed. He looked at, she was crying, but she was smiling too, the happiest he had ever seen her. When the applause finally died down, the emperor spoke again. "I am told you rejected every reward I offered you, Daniel Cole, command of my fleet, governance of any world you choose, wealth beyond measure. You refused it all. Why?" Daniel thought carefully before answering. "Your Majesty, I did not save the princess for a reward. I saved her because it was my duty, and because she is worth saving." Another murmur ran through the crowd. Several nobles exchanged surprised looks. "Then what do you want?" the emperor asked. "Name anything in my power to give, and it is yours." Daniel looked at. She met his gaze with those purple eyes that had once looked at him with shame. Now they held something very different. "I would like to remain as Princess Guardian," Daniel said, "if she will still have me." The emperor raised an eyebrow. He looked at his daughter. "What do you say?" The princess stepped forward. She took Daniel's hand in front of the entire court. It was a gesture that meant something deep in culture, a gesture of trust and affection that was never given lightly. "I would have no other," she said clearly. "Daniel Cole is not my servant. He is my protector, my friend, and the bravest soul I have ever known. I am honored to have him at my side." The Emperor smiled. It was a genuine smile, something rare on his ancient face. "Then it is done. Daniel Cole will remain as guardian to Princess, and let it be known throughout the Empire that this human stands under the full protection of the Crown. Any who harm him, threaten him, or disrespect him will answer to me personally." The ceremony continued for another hour. There were speeches and rituals that Daniel did not fully understand, but finally it was over. As the crowd dispersed, Lord approached Daniel. The security commander who had once mocked him now looked at him with very different eyes. "I was wrong about you, human," said quietly. "I have been wrong about many things. I hope you can forgive an old fool." Daniel looked at the massive. "There is nothing to forgive, my lord. You judged me by what you knew, now you know more." Nodded slowly. "Indeed, we all do." He bowed to Daniel and walked away. That evening, Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. A million lights glittered below them. Ships flew through the night sky like metal stars. "Everything has changed," said softly, "because of you." "I did not mean to change anything," Daniel replied. "I just did my job." "That is what makes it so powerful." She turned to face him. "You did not try to be a hero, you simply refused to fail, and that refusal changed how an entire galaxy sees your species." Daniel thought about that. Across 1,000 worlds, humans were being looked at differently now, not as the weak species, not as the fragile ones, but as the species that did not give up, the species that fought against impossible odds and sometimes won. "Do you think it will last?" he asked. "The change, yes," nodded. "You cannot unsee what we saw, you cannot unknow what we now know. Humans are not what we thought, and we will never forget it." She took his hand again. Her silver fingers intertwined with his pink ones. "I was ashamed of you once," she admitted. "I thought having a human guard was a punishment, a sign of my disgrace. And now I understand that you were never my punishment." She smiled at him. "You were my gift. I was just too blind to see it." Daniel looked at the princess who had become his friend, who had sat by his bed for a month while he fought for his life, who had refused to give up on him even when every physician said he would die. "You saved me too," he said. "I would not have survived without you." "Then we saved each other," squeezed his hand. "And we will continue to save each other for as long as we both live." "That might be a while," Daniel said with a small smile. "Humans are harder to kill than everyone thought." Laughed. It was a beautiful sound. They stood together on the balcony, looking out at the galaxy that would never see humans the same way again. A princess and her guardian, two species, two worlds, one bond that could not be broken. And across the stars, the story of Daniel Cole spread like wildfire. The human who had taken a fatal blow and refused to die. The human who had stood before royals and declared that his princess was worth more than his life. Other species heard the story and felt uneasy. If one human could do this, what could a billion humans do? What could a species that never accepted defeat accomplish if given the chance? They did not know the answer, but they were starting to fear it. Because now they understood the truth that humanity had always known. Humans were not survivors despite being fragile. They were survivors because they refused to accept any other option. And when a human decided something was worth fighting for, not even death itself could stop them. Daniel Cole stood on the balcony with his princess, watching the stars. He was just a human, small, short-lived, breakable. But he had proven that those words meant nothing. And the galaxy would never forget it.